start your show now, press 1. To hear important instructions, press.
Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Blog Talk Radio.
Well, welcome to the show. Like I said, this is going to be a shorter one today, just because I kind of have some other things going on, things of that nature. If you're joining me on the YouTubes, welcome. Super happy to talk with anyone. Go ahead and shoot me a chat. I'm going to go ahead and kind of just get this thing started. So listen, I only saw snippets of the fight from this past weekend because the only part of the pay-per-view I was actually really interested in was seeing, I believe it was Roy Jones and Mike Tyson. Excuse me, because I had actually seen Mike Tyson's training videos, things of that nature, and my God, can that man still fight, bro? Like it's insane that man can still fight like that. Also, I don't know. I mean, maybe because they're older, especially Roy, who, I get it. It's kind of in their blood. I think really, I've always felt like really Mike probably retired a little too early. Mike probably retired way too early in his career, but he also dealt with a lot of stuff that he kind of put himself through. So, but the big point of that whole pay-per-view that became kind of the big thing of that pay-per-view was the fact that so Nate Robinson and I believe it was Jake Paul, or sorry, Jake. Yeah, I think it was Jake Paul. Decided to do a fight, a boxing fight, and people, let me tell you, that's embarrassing, man. Like, that's embarrassing, dog. Like, I think I understand why Nate took the fight. And yes, Nate is a former kind of high caliber player in the NFL, the NBA. Good point guard, really small guy, but could usually see lanes as far as his passing went and assisting. He used to try to guard dudes bigger than he could ever be. But still solid NBA player for a long time, right? Bro, you can't get slept by Jake like that. Like that's like you make especially after Deontay Wilder, earlier this year. I think that was this year. Like, bro, like we can't keep taking these L's as black men in boxing. Like this can't happen. Like it cannot happen, man. Horrible stuff, man. So really, that whole fight, when I'm kind of watching it back before I even seen the memes, because the internet is absolutely undefeated at all times, people. So if you do something stupid, you will get memed for it. I gotta say, I just a part of me thought it would at least be a fight, because Jake actually has taken the boxing thing seriously, but you could still tell while watching the fight, like, dude's an amateur. Like, dude is an amateur fighter. Still got a lot to study, still got a lot to learn. The only thing that I wasn't the biggest fan of was the fact that, like, was the fact that like he just kind of kept running into the fist, man. Like, dude, like, what are you doing? Like Nate Robinson, like, basically just kept walking into his punches. Like, bro, like, what? Like, bro, you didn't do no studying. Like, I know you trained. I heard he like didn't really spar a lot, but like, it's like, come on, bro. Like, come on. Like, you got to take this seriously, man. Like, how do you just walk into the boy's punches like that? Like, of course he got knocked the hell out. Really, he shouldn't have got up after the second time he went down. Like, at that point, man, take the cash, take the L, move on. You know, at least you would have still at least had a little bit of your pride. Got up again, and he got straight up put to bed. Like, he got put to bed. The memes were warranted. I agree, Stefan. For those who don't know, I also am doing a live stream on YouTube. Go ahead, follow me over there. Just go to youtube.com, search for Jesse Stowe. You'll find me. I'm live right now. The link stuff with YouTube has been a little spotty, but yeah, man, you cannot walk into a nap like that. So yeah, man, maybe KSI can. I know KSI was talking about maybe he'll take him on. You know, once the pandemic lets up a little bit and they can kind of have people back. I'm kind of hoping KSI does black people justice at this point, because I mean, Deontay Wilder got slapped, and then I mean, I know people will talk about Floyd and McGregor, but to be fair, while McGregor is a hell of a fighter, that was an all right match. It wasn't too bad, but I never thought McGregor could win, because Floyd is been one of the best technician fighters for a very, very long time, especially a defensive fighter. Like, when you can't knock him out, you're not touching him, he's gonna win the fight. Like, that's, boxing is a thinking sport. Like, UFC is kind of taken over, and so we see a lot of these technical like tap outs and things of that nature. And it's, I guess, it's not a shock to me that Nate got knocked out, but I was hoping he wouldn't get put to bed. And then, yeah, like I said, man, the fight between Roy and Mike. I mean, listen, I actually think Mike went easy on him, because I'm kind of sitting there watching some of the body punches, and Mike still got that power, bro. 54 years old and still got all the power in the world in them arms, man. Like, dude is scary as hell. I'd be interested to see him do like a charity fight with one of the younger heavyweights. The problem with being that age, though, taking on someone in their their early 30s and in their prime, I don't know how much body shots Mike can take, because really those guys are going to try to stay away from Mike's power. But I'm interested to see. He kind of started this Legends League, so it'll be really, really interesting to see in the future. I got my buddy Stefan on the live stream on YouTube right now. It was a letdown. The card overall was a letdown. I wasn't really a big fan of the performances either when I kind of went back to watch it, but whatever. Yeah, but Nate Robinson getting put to sleep. Excuse me. One of the worst things to happen to black men in sports in a while, because that was embarrassing. That was absolutely embarrassing. Next, I'm gonna move on to the NBA real quick. So for those who don't know, there was a big trade. Russell Westbrook has been traded out of Houston to Washington. The Rockets get John Wall and a first-round pick. I think in the long run, it only helps the Wizards short term as far as their box office. Like, if they even get fans back at their whenever they start, I think sometime around Christmas or after Christmas or something like that. I'm gonna have to go check my news again. My notes are on here are kind of all jumbled up, but Russell is going to go down as one of the best of his generation. But Russell, in a sense, is sometimes a terrible team player. Here's what I mean. He on a court doesn't make everyone around him better. He's the dude that goes, I can take this, I can win this, since I don't think my team can get it done. And by the way, he can get it done by himself. Don't get it twisted. The man is an offensive wizard. But, because you think about it, especially with Bradley Beal on the team, you would think, okay, maybe the Wizards can compete for the 8th or the 7th seed in the East. Because for those who don't know, I mean, the Magic have basically made the playoffs the last few years. They only got better. Atlanta got better. The Hawks got better. Boston is Boston. I can kind of go through the list. Toronto, just incredibly well coached, the Raptors. So, but just maybe getting to the first round, getting bounced out, is that all Russ is going to be in his career in the NBA? We'll see. And then as far as the Rockets are concerned, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to me to see, because I don't think John Wall is enough for them to keep James Harden. For those who don't know, James Harden has not signed his extension with the Rockets yet at all. And maybe there's a chance maybe James Harden should move on. I don't know. He's been a really good cornerstone player for them since he's been there. But they've never, besides when they had Chris Paul, they've never had a team deep enough to make a deep run. Besides when, but Chris Paul is a leader. He can step back and just be a leader and a distributor. Russ is capable, but that ain't Russ's game. And to be fair, John Wall is kind of the same player Russ is, except that he's a little bit less selfish as far as on the court. So, yeah, I don't know who wins this trade. Also, in other news, the Lakers, listen, they extended the King. Of course you would. The man's going to be 40 next year, people. That's crazy, ain't it? I still remember when he got drafted. I still remember the hype around the kid, LeBron, and when a 19, 20-year-old kid took kind of a lonely franchise to the finals again. And yes, they got swept because the team around LeBron wasn't that deep. I think that was his 3rd year in the league when they got swept, when he took the Cavaliers to the finals, and they got swept maybe 4th year. It's kind of crazy to think LeBron's almost 40 now. It's insane. But yeah, they signed Anthony Davis long term. Why wouldn't you? LeBron maybe might play another 3 years. Anthony Davis is a cornerstone player. Yeah, you get that dude wrapped up. They also have actually added some nice veteran pieces to the squad. So, it's hard to say that they won't repeat. I know there's been some news about the Clippers. My overall opinion is I actually think that my man should have just stayed in Toronto. I really think that that Kawhi should have just stayed in Toronto, bro. Like, you ain't gonna win in the West from the West. Not with Bron out there, not with Denver out there. Like, in Dallas will get you. Like, hell, the Spurs will get better. They still got a Hall of Fame coach, which at this point, since he's not done coaching, they should just put Pop in the Hall of Fame now. And just, that way we're just, we know it. You know what I mean? He's also a great man, by the way. But yeah, I think he should have just stayed in the East. But I'm not Kawhi. I'm not one of Kawhi's people, because if I was, I'd have like, bro, just stay in Toronto. Stay in Toronto or go to another East team, because that's the only way you got a shot. The Clippers are a debacle. And right now they're going to still be together. Paul George talking about, I want to be a Clipper for life. But he threw Doc under the bus, talking about he didn't get enough playing time. But Doc clearly gave you all the playing time in the world. Are you kidding me, bruh? Are you kidding me? So yeah, it'll be interesting. And I'm kind of continuing to kind of monitor the rest of the off season for the NBA. It's going to be interesting. Like I said, I think they're supposed to basically start up sometime like right after the New Year. So yeah, the pandemic has not really done them any favors, but we'll see what happens. To the NFL, man. So there was a Wednesday night game or a Wednesday game. The Steelers are one of the worst undefeated teams I have seen since the Patriots last year. And people thought just because I was a Jets fan that I was hating, but I was trying to tell you guys, like, bro, this is one of the absolute worst so-called best teams in the NFL I've ever seen. I'm like, if they don't improve, they're going to probably get bounced in their first playoff game. That's exactly what happened to the Patriots. I'm predicting the same thing for the Steelers. And it's not because of the defense, which didn't, they played well yesterday, on Wednesday. They played very well. But it's Benish is not, all these injuries. And yes, having him back is helpful. There's a reason they're 11-0. Having him back is extremely helpful because last year, I think they went like 7-9, 8-8, and the truth was they were just playing with a bunch of third stringers the whole way last year with quarterbacks. That's how great of a coach Mike Tomlin is. Like, don't get it twisted. But Ben is like, and like we know that he's an older quarterback, but like unlike Breeze and Brady and Phillip Rivers, who doesn't really plan on playing into his 40s, but like he looks like maybe this should be his last year in the league, man. And I know that sounds crazy, but it's just like literally watch the games and really without those weapons, that wide receiving core is incredible. Juju, Chase, Washington. I mean, they just know how to draft wide receivers in Pittsburgh. But yeah, man, ain't no way in hell that they win their first playoff game with that offense and the way it plays at time. The fact that they are very inconsistent running the football, like it's just sometimes being undefeated doesn't mean you're the best. Now, when the Pats did it back, I think that was in 2007. Well, they were definitely the best. They had so much firepower. They could run the football, and the defense was opportunistic. Like, I was thankful for the Giants. Sorry, 2008, 2009. I'm sorry. I was thankful for the Giants. Don't get me wrong. I was very, very thankful for the Giants beating that undefeated team, but because they probably should have went 19-0. They probably should have went 19-0, but the Giants and good old Eli stopped that. But that was that's one of the last undefeated teams I've seen in the last decade. That was actually, to me, when I watched them, I go, yeah, they can win the Super Bowl. For sure they can win a Super Bowl. The Chiefs are probably the only team when I look in the NFL right now that you can put money on they got a shot at getting to the Super Bowl and winning it. They're about it. They're literally about it. Also, what I'm going to do in a second is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put the call number for the radio show into these couple of chats and stuff so people can feel free to call in. Because like I said, this is going to be kind of a shorter show. And yeah. But yeah, so yeah, after watching that game, also really sad to watch that game because like you know, I was a big fan of RG3 when he came out of college. And yeah, man, I don't know, watching the game, I felt bad for him. You know, he's clearly those knee injuries have clearly caught up. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Those knee injuries have clearly caught up. And maybe they should have just started Tracy McSorley. For those who don't know, Lamar actually tested positive for COVID, so he didn't play, which is why they actually moved the game to Wednesday instead of originally it was going to be Monday afternoon, and then okay, we'll do it Tuesday, and it was like, oh, we'll do it Wednesday at like 2 or 3 in the afternoon. Like, well, this is weird. Well, this is strange with a piece of change. But yeah, I guess, like I said, we'll kind of see what happens. All right, into week 13. Like I said, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to throw this number out there for you guys real quick. It's 516-387-1742. If you want to feel free to call into the show. Like I said, I'm only going to be on for the next half an hour. As far as the show is concerned, I might keep the live stream going for a little bit longer after that. 516-387-1742. Actually, I'm going to put it out there for all my peeps out there on Facebook and Twitter. So getting into week 13, they should move on from Lamar. Listen, man, he's only in his 4th year. There is a little bit of regression, but to be fair, responding to a commenter on my YouTube, to be fair to young Lamar, they ain't helped him. I mean, they got Marquise, and Marquise is good. The 2 tight ends are fine, but they don't push the ball downfield as much as they did early in last season. Because the league adjusts, defensive coordinators adjust, players adjust, and they have not adjusted enough. Lamar is capable. Yes, exactly. They became too predictable. Lamar is actually capable of passing from the pocket. We've seen it. But just like any pocket passer, if you start getting rushed up the middle, which has happened now a little bit more often in the last 4 or 5 weeks, I don't know if they've had major offensive line issues. Actually, I think they were on second stringers the last 2 games because of COVID. Doesn't help any quarterback, even one that is so elusive like Lamar Jackson, who is incredibly elusive. Incredibly elusive. Yeah, they became too predictable, and they're definitely in trouble of not making the playoffs at all. The best they can hope for is a 6th seed. So, yeah, going into week 13, doing my little pick'ems real quick. The Browns and the Titans think it's going to be a hell of a game. Kevin Stefanski, who used to be of course, offensive coordinator for the Vikings, doing a hell of a job out there in Cleveland. He found how to make his offense work. Don't make Baker Mayfield do too much. There was a reason why when that draft happened, Sam Darnold, to a lot of people, was rated higher. And in the next game, I'll get to Sam and hopefully what his future will bring. I love Sam, but like I said, we'll get to Sam. I'm a Jet fan. Basically, he excels in play action. He excels in the short to intermediate passing game as long as they're quick routes and run the football. You got 2 dynamic backs. Wyatt Teller has come along, that right guard that they drafted. He has come along as a damn near all-pro right guard. So now you got an incredibly great offensive line there. And that left tackle developed very, very well. I think the Browns are an interesting team to me because I think next offseason, they should probably trade Odell because it's not, overall, he does not have the numbers that a wide receiver of his caliber should have. I would trade Odell and Landry. I know that sounds crazy, but this year's draft will have another excellent, at least 3 to 4 round crop of wide receivers that could be absolute studs again. So, a lot of them didn't even play this year for college football. So, But they got the formula. Run the football. I believe Myles Garrett is. I don't know if he's still hurt. I'm gonna have to go check. But that defense is still really damn good. They stop the run, play the pass so well. By the way, this, as I'll get to with teams like the Jets and the Lions here later on in my predictions. This is what happens when you draft well. The fact that even when you don't get the quarterback right, if you can at least get the coach right, the team can still be a winner in the NFL. And the Browns have drafted and signed incredibly, incredibly well. And I know people thought it was crazy for them to trade Kevin, I think it's Ziegler to the Giants. But it was, to me, I thought it was a brilliant move. They also picked up picks from that. So that, like, that was, and they've used it and developed good players like Wyatt Teller. So they didn't lose much on that end. Ziegler, who was a Pro Bowler for 2 years in Cleveland. So, and then the Titans, listen, man, right now, Bill Belichick is probably still one of the best coaches in the NFL. I've already talked about Mike Tomlin earlier. I watched Mike Vrabel play when I got to watch him play. So now seeing him as a head coach, I didn't think he was ever going to be a head coach. I always thought most of those guys in New England would become great coordinators at some point when I got older. It's crazy to say, right? But he's becoming one of the absolute best young head coaches. I don't believe he's even 50 yet. That team plays hard for him every single week, even when they lose a game. And I mean, as I'll get to Adam Gase in a second, this is what happens when a first-round quarterback kind of maybe has some limitations, but you build your offense around him to make it work. He got an offensive coordinator to do that with Ryan Tannehill. They will probably have no need to draft a quarterback for the next 4 or 5 years. It's amazing what happens. I think this will be a great game. I'm actually going to pick the Titans to win this one, keep a little bit of a lead in the AFC South. And we'll kind of get to the Colts and the Texans because I think the Texans are coming along. They just won't make the playoffs. Next game, Raiders, my Jets. Woo! Man. My head says the Raiders should blow us out. The Raiders should blow us out of the water. My heart, and I don't even know why, it's not like we have a better head coach all of a sudden or they fired Adam Gase. First, let me talk about the Raiders. Kind of disappointed in the last couple of weeks. They've taken some W's, maybe like they should have probably beat the Chiefs on Monday Night Football. I think it was Sunday Night Football. It's a game that the defense let go. And I get it. Patrick Mahomes is a beast, but you play him twice and you already beat them earlier in the year in Kansas City. You know what he's capable of. You know what that team is capable of. Defense simply dropped the ball, man. They dropped the ball. So they lost that game. They've also lost a couple others that they should have won. The Raiders are a good squad. And I'm not saying they're not a good squad. Henry Ruggs got hurt, but was developing quite nicely. He's going to be a great young number one for them, especially as he gets better at running routes. So the Raiders should blow out my Jets. A part of my heart, for some stupid reason, believes that the Jets could win this one. I'm still picking the Raiders, but a part of my heart is like, well, I mean, Elflein's going to be in there. He's a bit of a better pass blocker than Alex Lewis at times, who got benched for inexplicable reasons. Really, Lewis should be playing the left, and then we should put Elflein, the former guard from Minnesota, on the right side, even though George Fant struggled and then got hurt. And so now it's Adogaba playing right tackle. Mekhi Becton has been a beast. So far, our new GM's first draft is looking pretty decent as long as these players can develop under a dude who should never, ever have another head coaching job again in Adam Gase. Ever. Meme this, send this to him, I don't care. That man should never, ever get a head coaching job in the NFL again. No one should listen to Peyton Manning about him ever again. No. I didn't even want him to get hired after his failures in Miami. It was the one win, even during our struggles the last 10 years, I could depend on. Like, we'll probably get the Dolphins once or twice. So those are wins because of Adam Gase. One year he gets into the playoffs. I think they didn't win the division, but he gets into the playoffs, and now he's got another. Like, it's one of the worst head coaches ever. I know people talk about Hugh Jackson and Rod Marinelli. Rod Marinelli, who, of course, unfortunately went 0-16 with the Lions. That team went 0-16 because he didn't have enough talent. For the last 9 weeks, that team fought hard every game and could have won every game. Of course, they didn't. That's why they were 0-16. But they just didn't have enough talent back then. With the Jets, I mean, we had talent, and like Adam Gase seems to always do, the talent says, to hell with playing for this guy, I want out. So here we are. But a lot of the young defensive players are coming along. I do like what I see out of the draft so far. We haven't seen our other offensive lineman. I don't know if he's been hurt. I don't know Cameron Clark out of Charlotte. I was hoping he would play this week over Greg Van Roten. What a great last name for you. But the Raiders should get the W here. But maybe. My big thing so far for the end of the year for the Jets is, and it sounds crazy, is Sam plays well, looks a lot better. We still lose most of our games, can still get the first pick. But we feel comfortable enough with a kid who's only 23 years old, only 23, where we can decide with that first round pick to just go ahead, trade down a little bit and gather picks, and then just build a squad around Sam and a new head coach. You've seen it happen, Ryan Tannehill, Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, it can happen when you put a guy who wasn't working with a coach, with a different coach that knows how to use them and to build a team. Because I actually so far don't mind not Mike McCagnon, but Joe Douglas. Mike McCagnon was a terrible GM. Joe Douglas as a GM, he's actually done a mostly good job. Jaguars at Vikes. Well, listen here, Viking fans. If you don't get the dub, you're not making the playoffs. So you better get the dub. They dropped that game. They dropped to Dallas was an embarrassment. I don't even think I talked about that in my last show. What an embarrassment! Like, come on, man. You can't be dropping games to the Cowboys. Really? You gave these dudes false hope that they were going to all of a sudden win their division, which is still semi possible. But the Vikings should beat the Jaguars. But for those who don't know, listen, Jaguars actually do have a good running game. Jake Luton is okay. He's a rookie. Minshew is not playing. It's still Jake Luton. It's not Jake Luton. It's the former quarterback of the Chicago Bears and Buccaneers, Mike Glennon, who's playing this game. So they're going to try to keep the ball out of his hands, so stop the running game. The receivers are pretty decent in Jacksonville. Really, Jacksonville just needs a quarterback. Jacksonville just needs a quarterback. They don't have a quarterback. The defense is actually still pretty good. CJ Henderson, as a rookie, has been playing very, very well the last few weeks. So, but they probably still need a safety or two to kind of make that defense elite again. I got a feeling though they're going to fire that head coach as well at the end of the year, and I don't blame Shad Khan. So the Vikings should get the W here. Kirk Cousins, man, you're getting paid all that money. get it done. Bengals at Dolphins. Dolphins should win easily. I would have picked the Bengals if Joe Burrow was still playing because Joe Burrow was starting to look like an elite prospect before his unfortunate injury. Get better, Joe Burrow. We got love for you here at the show. Dolphins should win that game pretty easily. I have no faith in Ryan Finley. I'm sorry, I don't. I didn't have faith in him in college, and I don't have faith in them now. Colts at Texans. I would not be shocked if the Texans won. The Colts need to win to stay in the race for the division because, like I said, I've already picked the Titans earlier to beat a very, very good Browns team who I do believe will get into the wild card. But I actually think the Texans are going to win. The biggest mistake that the Texans ever made was they gave Bill, formerly of the Patriots, all that power. Who ships out one of the top 2 receivers in the league for David Johnson in the 3rd round pick? Trades 1st round picks, most of his first. Now, I think Laramie Tunsil was one of them. That was a good decision because they needed protection for Deshaun. Deshaun has signed his contract, but the interesting thing about Deshaun's contract apparently is it is partially tradable before the start of the next year for the NFL. So, I mean, the new Texans GM foreseeably could get a ransom if someone's willing to pay the ransom for Deshaun Watson. And by the way, why wouldn't you? Hell, to be honest, as a Jet fan, I am not really sold on Trevor Lawrence. I've gotten to see some of the games this year. He kind of struggles to read defenses. So, I mean, if the Jets can get a play at someone like Deshaun Watson, maybe, hell yeah, go get him if the next head coach comes in and is willing to let Deshaun go for a ransom, him and the GM. But that's neither here nor there. It's something I'm going to love talking about, though, starting in January. But I actually think the Texans are going to take the upset here. Lions at Bears. Once again, what happens when you draft well? You get a situation like you have in Cleveland. As long as you have a good head coach, it works out. What happens when you draft well, but you don't have a good head coach? You get the Detroit Lions. That team's too talented to be 4-7. Matt Patricia has been an extreme disappointment, or was an extreme disappointment, and deserved to get fired. This team has wasted Matthew Stafford's best years. They should probably consider trading him to a contender next year, which is why I don't think it's a slam dunk that Dak Prescott goes back to the Cowboys, because if I'm Jerry Jones and I'm really desperate and I don't want to pay Dak $40 million a year, then I actually do believe Matthew Stafford might be on the market, and it might be a good idea to make the trade for him. So what I'm trying to get to is the Bears should win this game. The Bears should take this game. It's a hell of a defense. I don't even know if Trubisky's starting again. That quarterback thing for them has been a mess. They went to Nick Foles because they felt he could be more productive, not realizing that while Mitchell Trubisky struggled, his ability to get out of the pocket actually hid their offensive line deficiencies, which is a failure upon the GM. I don't know if Matt Nagy deserves to be fired, but if he does get fired and things work out as far as like Sam Darnold for the Jets, I'll take Matt Nagy because that dude's a good head coach. It's not his fault what has happened with Mitchell Trubisky. They should have never – that was a terrible, terrible choice in that spot with Deshaun and Patrick Mahomes still on the board. Once again, what happens when you draft well? But the Bears should win that game. The Saints at Falcons, this will not be a cakewalk. It's not going to be a cakewalk, but the Saints should win. I like a lot of what I see out of Taysom Hill. Like a lot of what I see out of – yeah, right. I like a lot of what I see out of Taysom Hill. 30 years old because, of course, he's Mormon, so he went to BYU. He did his few years of traveling for, I forget what it's called. I'll just kind of call it excursion for now. And it's clear why they think he's heir apparent to Drew Brees. He's got about Drew Brees' arm strength, but he's much, much more athletic than Drew has ever been. And there was a time Drew was definitely more athletic. But by the way, that's also an indictment if you're Jameis Winston. You're a dude who started for 4 years. As long as you cleaned up his turnover issue, he's a really good quarterback when he's not giving the ball to the other team. Jameis will eventually get another starting job. I think Jameis will probably have Ryan Fitzpatrick's career, and it's not a bad career to have where you go start, maybe get a couple teams to the playoffs that you've been on, or at least get them close, but have winning records, things of that nature. But Taysom Hill's a good quarterback. Gives them a lot of flexibility in the offense to do a lot of things that, of course, you cannot do with a 40-year-old Drew Brees. And that defense is special right now. They're about the only team in the NFC I look at and go, yeah, if they keep going on this trajectory, Drew will come back. They're going to go to the Super Bowl because I'm not sure the Vikings will make the playoffs. It's sad. It's almost sad that for teams that don't, if you're a fan of teams that don't like the Saints, you almost have to root for the Vikings to make the playoffs because otherwise, I don't know how they're going to get beat. But yeah, I think the Saints will pull this one out. But the Falcons have played a lot better since firing the head coach, which is a shame. I like Dan Quinn. They just 28-3 will always haunt that team until they can make it back to a Super Bowl with some of the main players on that team. It will always haunt that franchise. So, Giants and Seahawks. The Seahawks have weapons, but they do not have an offensive line I trust. And the Giants defense has played a hell of a lot better in the last 4 to 5 weeks. That being said, I believe Daniel Jones is hurt or he got COVID or something. I have to go double check my sources again. But I don't believe he's playing this game, which means I believe Colt McCoy is starting. So I have to go with the Seahawks. I actually probably would have went with the Giants if Daniel Jones is playing. I know that sounds crazy, but he's actually played better. And Joe Judge is turning into a special head coach. So apparently the Giants are not that far off. Also, another team that not only signed free agents well, because Bradbury is starting to get back into some Pro Bowl form. He's been outstanding. They might be a year away from starting to dominate that division. So I'll go with the Seahawks on this one because without Daniel Jones, semi beat up Saquon Barkley. I mean, it's just I don't see how they score enough points. The defense will keep them in the game, but the Seahawks in the end, I think, will pull it out probably by a field goal. It'll be a close game. Rams at Cardinals is going to be another excellent NFC West matchup. These guys play each other. They just kind of beat the hell out of each other in the NFC West. I'm going to go with the Cardinals. I actually think this division is going to come down to the very end. It's so good. The only team that really suffers in that division right now is the 49ers, and they won't suffer for long. Kyle Shanahan will make a decision on a quarterback at some point. Either he'll keep Jimmy or he'll let Jimmy go. Jimmy will probably end up back in New England at that point. They got good wide receivers. They can run the football. Defense has been a little bit of a letdown, but I thought after the Super Bowl that they needed to just go ahead and kind of start getting some younger corners and stuff anyway. Don't keep relying on guys like Richard Sherman. He's getting up there, man. And he can't really run with younger wide receivers, which is why they play a lot of zone with him, because he can still shut them out in zone. Don't get it twisted. And he's still physical. Richard ain't the same cover corner he used to be. But I think Kyler Murray is going to pull off a miracle again. And I think the Cardinals will actually get this win at home. Patriots and Chargers. I think this is where the Patriots get back to 500. Though the Chargers, I think, are only a year away. Unfortunately, I have a feeling the Chargers are going to fire Anthony Lynn because this season has been kind of disappointing. They were kind of expected to maybe at least compete to make the playoffs with Tyrod Taylor. He had a horrible kind of you know, in his heart like injury and something like that, where they kind of had to keep him out, and then they found out later maybe it wasn't as serious as they thought. But by that time, Justin Herbert had been playing so well, you can't take the rookie out. You got to let him play, and he's been really, 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 really good. Defense has been up and down, but they also haven't really had all their pieces, to be fair to them. And like I said, I fear Anthony Lynn will lose his job at the end of this year, which I think for Chargers fans, I think you're calling for his head a little too early. Yes, his clock management at times has been horrible this year, but that team is probably only a year away from competing in the West with the Raiders and the Chiefs. Justin Herbert just needed a year under his belt, and if I was a GM, I might not fire him. I'd give him another year at least. If I was a GM or something like that of the Chargers, just I'd give him a break for this year, basically. But there's a chance because of the uproar within the fandom, and I get it. You guys expected to get to the playoffs. He'll be gone, but I expected the Patriots to win this game, close game for sure, but they'll win it. Eagles at Packers. This is going to sound crazy. I actually think the Eagles might win this game. I'm sorry, Packer fans. When you can't stop the run, you're going to pay for it at some point. Minnesota did it on such a scale that it became like a thing that people just do to you guys now. And luckily you still have Aaron Rodgers, but you kind of wasted his prime years since you won 10 years ago, since you won the Super Bowl 10 years ago. You've wasted some of his best years not really having a decent defense, just having good pass rush. Jair Alexander in the secondary, those two safeties are really good. But if you can't stop the run, that's a problem. That's a problem. The only reason it hasn't been exposed much since the Minnesota game and the other game after Minnesota, I can't remember off the top of my head, is just because most of those teams that you played really weren't the best running football teams. The Eagles can run the football. Now, he needs to make the decision to actually do so. But the Eagles can run the football. The Eagles, to me, it's not just a Carson Wentz issue. It's a head coach problem. He's also gotten complacent. He rested on his laurels because they won that Super Bowl 2 years ago. They got back to the playoffs because really the East is terrible. The East is trash. And it's not a shock that the NFC East was mostly garbage. You kind of knew Washington and the Giants would start to be on the come up because I've liked their drafts. I just hate the Washington football team's owner, but that's another discussion for a whole other day. But yeah, I think the Eagles will pull this off. This will probably be the one I'm wrong on this week, but I'm putting my faith in the Eagles. Broncos at Chiefs. Chiefs will win the game, but the Broncos are a good up-and-coming football team that had to start considering looking for head coaches. It's not working out with Vic Fangio. They might give him a pass because Von Miller got injured so early, and Bradley Chubb also kind of got injured really early in the year. He's trying to fight his way back now, but he just has not developed the way that Bradley Chubb should have developed. The secondary is still good. And then Drew Lock, that was really irresponsible of them. And so they had to play with a guy who hadn't basically played quarterback in 2 years as a college quarterback. So, but I think the Chiefs will win that game. So one game that got moved was Steelers against Washington at Pittsburgh. The Steelers will win, but like I said, man, this is one of the worst undefeated teams I've ever seen. And if they're not careful, Alex Smith will catch them. You will catch an L because Alex Smith does not turn over the football. What a great story he's been coming back from that gruesome, horrible injury he suffered 3 years ago. So happy for Alex. Always been an Alex Smith fan. Yeah. By the way, Alex Smith and Colin Kaepernick talking about when you switch a coach for a quarterback who's been struggling, all of a sudden you start to see the quarterback's potential. Just saying. But yeah, if the Steelers are not careful, they will catch a horrible L. And then Bills at Bills at San Fran. The Bills should win the game. But like I said, don't sleep on the Niners. They have struggled. Nick Mullins is not the same type of talent as Jimmy. But like I said, there's a good chance Jimmy is gone after next year. They don't actually guarantee him anything until I think April of the beginning of next football season as far as his contract's concerned. So I got a